Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com, joined by Zane Simon for the sixth round of UFC Hidalgo, UFC Fight Night 94, in which Michael Johnson just obliterated Dustin Poirier in his win streak in 1 minute 35 seconds. Zane, what the heck happened?
Man, I don't know. I expected Dustin Poirier to be a lot more competitive. I expected him to win that fight. He's
Me
been
too.
known throughout his career as being the bigger puncher. Michael Johnson has tended to be a busy, scrappy fighter and a guy who'll get in there and mix it up and pressure people, but he doesn't have a ton of KOs. He's got a couple of decent ones, but not a guy I expect to see just
No.
dropping a bomb on somebody like that.
And I was going off of the win-loss streaks. I mean, Poirier was hot coming in off a four-fight win streak, and Johnson was ice cold coming in off a two-fight losing streak. I still don't understand the matchmaking here. I mean, Poirier is ranked 7, Johnson's ranked 10, but to me, Poirier had title momentum, and Johnson was slipping, and now Poirier is done slipped, and Johnson, I still don't feel like has any momentum towards a title shot.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, as big as that fight was, and as good as that fight was, it's still a guy who lost his two fights before this to guys who aren't title contenders right now.
No, no, not
And
unless they just throw Nate Diaz a title shot. Just
yeah, just to sell, which
yeah,
they could, and
yeah,
that's fine. But yeah, Johnson to me, he's talking about like I've got the fastest hands in the division. I'm ready for anyone. It's like, yeah, but you also are a dude that lost to Reza Madadi. I'm excited by this. This was cool, but I
yeah.
need
If Johnson can
more.
make a habit of performances like this, he will completely make me a fan. I mean, he's had his bright spots before.
Oh yeah,
Knocked out
he
Gleason
beat Edson
Tebow.
Barboza. He's got good
Yep.
wins, but he also just has really bad losses too.
Yeah. I mean, Miles Jury. Whew, yeah. I mean, and very frustrating performance from Dustin Poirier. It just felt like he didn't get his feet under him at all. Johnson gave him no chance.
Yeah, Poirier's got a long history of being very hittable. It's something that it seemed like he'd worked a lot on and was fixing, but he's also a really high output, high aggression fighter. And when you are always aggressive and always throwing, you're going to get hit. That's just the way it is. And I don't know. I mean, maybe. I mean, the shots Johnson hit him with would have put almost anyone away. Those were huge. I don't want to say
Yeah.
like maybe his chin's going, but
It was a succession of vicious, perfect shots right on the
yeah.
button, and yeah, I don't think anybody. So where do we go from here? Who does Johnson fight? I mean, he's got a loss to number 9 Benel Dariush.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like there are enough lightweights in the division that I don't feel like it needs to be a division where you're rematching guys. You're like, oh, we need to see a replay of that Darius fight. That wasn't an amazing fight the
No,
first time, but I don't know. Like somebody, let's see, I just went past the division. Maybe somebody like not Rashid Magomedov. That's not a good fight.
no. I mean, you could have a completely
Chiesa, maybe Chiesa might be
Michael
fun. Like,
Chiesa. Is he? How badly was he injured? He missed his last fight.
yeah, I don't think it was that bad, but I'm not sure. If he's injured, then that's not available. And I don't know. I mean, the top of that division's kind of a little bit sewn up right now. Maybe if Will Brooks won his next fight, you could do Michael Johnson versus Will Brooks.
Maybe you could throw him at Evan Dunham just because they both should be on similar cycles if they're not injured, but it wouldn't really
True.
be getting anybody anywhere. I mean, it might be racking up a win against a contender for a ranked contender for Johnson, which wouldn't be the worst thing to do with with the 2 fight losing streak before this win, but it also doesn't get him anywhere.
Maybe
And
the
he's,
loser of RDA versus Ferguson.
man, that would be a tough fight for Johnson. But yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, if he
if you want.
wants to be the top guy in the division, he's been around long enough.
Yeah, and he's coming off a big win, but no telling. And then in the co-main event, you had Derek Brunson light up Uriah Hall. Possible early stoppage. The crowd in the arena there in Hidalgo was pissed, but minute 41 seconds. Brunson looked pretty sharp, in that fight. I do think the stoppage was early, and it capped a night of really shitty reffing.
Yeah, the reffing was bad all night. I gotta say, like, I don't hate that stoppage in the sort of way of like, you know, it's like when Frankie Edgar talks about how he deserves a title shot at 145, and it's like, you want to be champ so bad, why don't you win the title? Like, why didn't you win the title fights when you had the belt? I kind of feel like with Uriah Hall, it's like, you don't want to be knocked out, then don't fall like a sack of potatoes when somebody hits you. You know?
Yes, yes, yeah. I mean, definitely Brunson hurt him when he dropped him, but he didn't land cleanly on the ground. But it just seemed like a matter of time. I don't have any questions coming out of that fight as to who was the better man tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the way Hall just even when he's better now, and I thought he might win this. I thought he might be able to counter Brunson because Brunson's so wild, but that aggression and Hall's he's just got this whole thing where he drifts, and it's just like he thinks he's more safe than he is when he's backing up, and so he keeps his chin high and his hands down, and he thinks that he doesn't have to. The fight for him it seems like it's just kind of an exhibition. He doesn't have to work that hard. He's just there to kind of show what he can do and not be necessarily that involved. And a guy like Brunson's just there to win. He's there to run at you, be mean, hurt you. If he thinks that you're not gonna fight him hard, he will just go after you and crush you. I mean, that's the way
And
Derek
that's what he
Brunson
did to Uriah
fights.
Hall. He just tore the head off his torso with that
Yeah,
shot. And to me, for Brunson to beat Hall early on at the range striking game, which should be Hall's bread and butter, just says everything. I mean, Brunson beat him at his own game. It's like Hall did not have his fight at all. I didn't see any kicks. I mean, he didn't establish range, but it wasn't like I thought if Brunson was going to beat Hall, it would be sort of a Randy Couture style mugging, put him up
yeah,
against the
wall and
wall.
maul him.
Yeah. And, but, hats off to Derek Brunson. I mean, he's talking title shot. I think that's probably a little premature. Partly because of the business aspect. Brunson has very little name to the casual fan, to say the least. But he's looking good. I mean, I think two or three more fights, particularly if they can get him on a big card, and he has a showcase win. I think flattening Uriah Hall like that. Hall's a name, like it or not.
Yeah, Hall's more of a name than he is a great fight. It's a great stepping stone fight for Brunson because Hall is more of a name than he is a difficult test.
Yep.
And that maybe that's the kind of win that could launch Brunson into being able to get one of those big veteran names floating around out there. Get him a Vitor Belfort fight, or get him a Luke Rockhold fight, or something that feels a little oversized but gets him a chance. Because there are a lot of top middleweights fighting each other and preparing to fight each other. You got Chris Weidman versus Yoel Romero. You got Luke Rockhold versus Jacare. These guys, some of them are going to lose, and they're going to, a guy like Brunson can be right there to catch the loser of one of those fights and get himself another big step up.
Yeah, those would be dream fights for Brunson, but I think it's more likely you get somebody like Gegard Mousasi or Robert Whitaker that's just a step above him. And I,
Yeah,
I think,
although Musasi these days is kind of all over the place, but
yeah, yeah, um, but yeah, I think it would take a win over somebody like Vitor Belfort for Brunson to really get attention and be ready for a title fight. But I see that as 2 fights away, so 3 fights away from a title shot. But we will see. We will see. Then in the third fight, you had Evan Dunham beat up short notice substitute Rick Glenn, but had to get away with unanimous decision. I mean, he was cracking on that kid, and that kid would not drop.
yeah, Glenn's a tough dude. All credit to him. He throws with enough power to keep the fight fun all the way through. I'm really just disappointed that the refs didn't give, or the judges didn't give Dunham a 10-8 first round. Like, he absolutely dominated Glenn bell to bell, didn't
Yeah,
take any punches, any damage, had complete control, mauled him the whole way through, and still got a 10-9. It's just like, how the hell can you give him a 10-9 for that and then give him a 10-9 for round 3 where he still won, but it's this super close, ugly, back and forth brawl all the way through.
I just don't feel like the Texas judges are on the cutting edge of
Yeah,
enlightenment.
everybody in Texas for their
Hey, hey,
tradition
hey!
just
I'm sitting
seems.
right here. But the reffing, the whole management of the fights, yes, our board of regulation or whatever it is we have in lieu of a commission is just piss poor. And
Your Department of hunting licenses, fishing licenses, and fighting licenses.
yes, yes, it's a beautiful thing, and we saw it on exhibit tonight. Although honestly, except for the ref that in the Perez Morales fight, most of the bad refing was big name refs. I mean, Herb Dean
Yeah,
could be any, and Herb Dean's got a long time rep, one of my favorite refs. For years, he's been one of the best refs in the game. I feel like he's having a bad 2016. Not a terrible one, but just for Herb Dean.
yeah. Well, it's also one of those things. When you ref that many big fights, everybody's gonna see your mistakes when they happen. Like you're always, Herb Dean. Is there a week that goes by where Herb Dean isn't refing like 5 fights?
It doesn't seem like it. I mean, he is out there with the gloves on week in, week out.
Yeah, and unlike, I mean, the big thing that a ref is at least half decent when he doesn't have a reputation like Tandan. Like I see Dan Mergliotta in there, and I know that somebody's going to have to get beat half to death before he's going to stop that fight. And
Yes.
it is no
Mario
question.
Yamasaki was the worst about that. Just the gist of Mario pointing and yelling, "Kill him!" Yeah. So anyway, back on track. Juan Conero beat Kenny Robertson, a split decision. Some okay moments in the fight, but not a scintillator.
What a shit awful fight!
Yes.
What a shit awful fight! That's one of those fights where, like, I mean, any scorecard in that fight would have literally been fine. 30-27 Kenny Robertson would have been totally fine.
Pretty
30-27
much.
Ron Carnero would have been fine. It was bad. Neither guy looked like it wasn't even usually in that case I'm like neither guy fought to win, but honestly, neither guy just looked like they had any clue of how to win the fight.
Yeah, they might have had some glimmerings of how to win an exchange or two here or there, but yeah, I mean, just ugly, ugly stylistic matchup. I'm not a fan of either guy, and yeah, we've spoken enough about that one. Then in lightweight, Islam Makhachev beat Chris Wade, unanimous decision. This was more fun. This was a really good grappling match.
Yeah, it was I'm glad that ended up not being a funky kickboxing match and was instead a funky wrestling match because that was
Yeah,
a way better display of both their skills.
yeah, that was much closer to home for both those guys. And the fun for me, even though Makachev blanked him on takedowns, but both of them had reversals. So you had a
Yeah,
lot of swings of momentum, and both guys got to show their stuff a little bit. And it was fun. I mean, it's mixed martial arts. I like my kickboxing. I also like my wrestling. I like my submission grappling. And this was mostly positional grappling, but pretty fun stuff. I mean, it was a little frustrating. It could have been in a higher gear, and I would have been perfectly happy with that. But there were some moments.
as long as both guys get a chance to engage in the fight, I'm happy with it. Like, to me, any fight is boring. Like, I would much rather see a fight like this than Carnero versus Robinson, where neither guy, or Robertson, where neither guy is engaged at all. Like, this is at least both guys are working hard. You can see what they're working for. They both have opportunities. It's back and forth. As long as you get something like that, no matter whether it's grappling or wrestling or striking or, even just a cage war, like or a war up against the fence, like I'm happy to see any fight that's active and back and forth.
Yeah, the momentum swings to me. To me, it's the momentum swings and the displays of technical skill, and this fight had both of those things. So, a good performance from Makachev. We'll see where he goes from here. Then, in the opener of the main card, featherweight Chaz Skelly blew away Maximo Blanco, 19 seconds, anaconda choke. I mean, damn, that was not the outcome I was expecting. I've seen Blanco. I've given up hope and trust in Blanco long ago, but I've never seen him just get scotched like that. Just
Well, I mean, what a
obliterated.
Maximo Blanco way to lose, though. Like the dude who is the portrait of MMA inconsistency.
Yes.
This is, if ever there was a dude that I would pick to win and lose fights by falling out the cage door, it's Maximo Blanco. He's that dude in the cage, and to get
Yeah.
like jumping drop kicked into an anaconda choke, that it was glorious and amazing, and I can't believe Skelly did it. But at the same time, I'm also like, yeah, it's a Maximo Blanco fight for you.
It's true. You never know what's going to happen when Blanco steps in the cage. I do remain a fan, even though I've given up hope in him ever amounting to anything, because he's
He's
always
total
entertaining.
chaos. It's
Yeah.
always chaos.
Yes, it's always chaos. And Chaz Skelly, I mean, uh, that's one of those fights where he pulled the trick play and it worked. It doesn't really tell you anything about where he's at. I
No,
mean,
Chaz Skelly, like he's cool. He's fun. He likes to do a lot. Go after a lot of stuff, and he's still a guy that I picked really confidently to lose to Darren Elkins. And him calling out Darren Elkins, I feel like I'm like I'd be pretty confident you'd lose that fight again. Like,
yep, yep. And the thing with the trick play to open the game, I mean, next fight, your opponent is going to be onto you. Like you're not
yeah,
pulling some bullshit to win two fights in a row. So not that it was bullshit, but I mean it was bullshit.
it's some silly shit. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like Paige Van Zant throwing all of these like random jumping kicks that aren't landing or coming close to landing, and then suddenly out of nowhere she hits the jumping switch head kick to knock out her opponent, and it's like, okay, that great
yep,
if it works, but all the rest of the times it doesn't, you're not doing anything.
yeah, pretty much. And then in the preliminary card headliner, you had a featherweight Gabriel Benitez uh, guillotine Sam Cecilia, minute 20 seconds to the second round. I thought pretty good performance from Benitez.
Yeah, that Benitez looked great, and Sam Cecilia continues to fight to his opponent's best areas. There's something
Yeah,
about him that's just like, what are you good at? Okay, I will challenge you there and only there. Oh, you're a good kickboxer. You're good at kickboxing range. Well, let's engage in a range striking battle where you can kick my leg apart.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's find your wheelhouse. Where's
Yeah,
your
let's find your
wheelhouse?
wheelhouse and I'll sit in it for a couple of rounds until you destroy me. Because his boxing has slowly been shored up, not that much. He's still very hittable and still live by the sword, die by the sword striker. But he did all right punching. He certainly outpunched Benitez for a while.
Yep, for a bit.
But he started getting hurt so much that when he finally did decide, oh, I should actually probably shoot a takedown, it was sloppy enough that Benitez hit a high elbow guillotine and just put him to sleep. It's gorgeous. Do you see the freeze frame of that where like all the spit and snot is like pouring out of his face as that thing gets sunk in?
Yeah, that was pretty painful to look at. So, condolences to Sam Cecilia's family and loved ones who had to see that picture. It was not pretty. All right, then you had welterweight Bilal Muhammad beat Augusto Montano TKO, 4 minutes 19 seconds to the third round. It sounds more exciting than it was when you hear the ending.
Yeah, it was a fine performance from Muhammad. I'm still not 100% sure that he's a top end athlete enough to be a really successful fighter in the UFC, but at the same time, he's got a really nice, patient, technical game that chips guys apart over time, and he was able to do that to Augusto Montano, who's kind of a very fringe UFC talent.
Yeah, yeah, and to me, it felt less that he picked him apart as he coasted for a couple rounds and then turned it on towards the end. Um, but he got the win. He got the highlight reel finish. So a good night for Muhammad. Then you had middleweight Antonio Carlos Jr. Beat Leonardo Augusto Guimaraes. What'd they call him on the air?
Leleco, Leonardo Augusto Leleco.
Yeah, yeah. And then Carlos Jr., I thought he looked sharp as shit. He beat him submission, rear naked choke, third round, 4 minutes 46 seconds. But I thought he had it in the bag at the point he got the submission and just looked really sharp.
Yeah, he did what he had to after that Dan Kelly loss. I mean, Dan Kelly's underrated, but that loss was really embarrassing for a guy that's supposed to be like have title aspirations at some point in the future. A guy that's supposed to be a top 10 middleweight down the road. Losing to
Yeah,
Dan Kelly is just kind of,
yeah, that was
especially getting knocked out by Dan Kelly. It's not supposed to happen. So he had to dominate this dude. If he didn't, that was going to be a major alarm bells are ringing moment.
Yeah, yeah. He was either going. He was either going to win and get back on track, or he was going to be pretty much derailed. I
And it
mean,
had to be a dominant win.
yeah,
Leleko's not like he's just kind of technically pretty trashy. Like you got to dominate a dude like that.
yeah, and he did, and
Yeah.
so he looked good, back on track. So good win for Antonio Carlos Jr. Then you had bantamweight Jose Alberto Quinones beat up Joey Gomez, unanimous decision. I thought Quinones looked pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like Gomez looked really bad.
Yeah, yeah. Although he
Like
did have a couple moments. He cracked Quinones a couple of times, but
he did, but he just seemed really unprepared for the speed and aggression with which fighters in the UFC are going to attack him. Like Quinones is not a marvelous technical fighter and not a amazing athlete, despite how much they were building him up. And you could see later when Gomez actually did get aggressive and try and throw punches, he actually hurt Quinones pretty badly.
yeah,
But for
yeah,
so
he
much of
lit
the
him up.
fight, Quinones just absolutely overwhelmed him with aggression.
Yeah, yeah, and that's all it took. And then in the Fight Pass headliner, you had Randy Brown beat Eric Montano, Anaconda choke submission, 18 seconds in the third round. I thought Randy Brown was screwing around for 2 rounds there. I really thought that Montano shouldn't have been doing that well against him.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. Dudes like Randy Brown and like Antonio Carlos Jr. I mean they're having to learn to fight in the UFC. So this was a good fight because it was somebody who's not an amazing athlete, not an amazing finisher, not a amazingly skilled technical fighter, and it's an opportunity for Brown to get more rounds, to get more experience, to make mistakes, screw up, and not have somebody that's just going to absolutely punish him. But yeah, I mean Brown, he should not have been getting out wrestled by Eric Montano. That's a bad sign. It's something he really needs to figure out how to fix.
Yeah, yeah, he needs to work on that a lot. But he did turn it on. He did get the submission in the third round. Then the opener bantamweight Alejandro Perez beat Albert Morales, or actually
It was the
majority
draw.
draw. And
Yeah.
that one, I was watching you score that one on Twitter. You had it for Morales. I had it for Perez. I really thought Perez was
Really?
connecting a lot more.
Nah, I thought the first 2 rounds were incredibly clear for Morales. Perez, I thought won late, but especially with Perez getting a point taken too, it
Which
just
was this was the worst ref fight of the night.
yeah,
I mean, by a wide margin. He missed a knee on the ground, and then a doctor point for Perez for hitting after the bell when both guys have been doing it, and he hadn't warned anybody. I mean, you
yeah.
know, after the first round when they both kept going, he really should have told them, "Hey, assholes, no hitting after the bell. I'm taking a point from the first guy that shows his shot after the bell." Like, if it's to me, I don't know, but it's
So,
hard to
so
get that worked out.
the fight, just to very briefly, the fight metric stats on this are Morales landed 27 strikes in round one to Perez's 12, and 21 in round two to Perez's 17, which is a close round.
Yeah,
That's close. And then they were basically equal in round three, which I think you had to give to Perez. He looked better, but I didn't. I thought it was a pretty clear
huh? I'd have
round
to
one
watch it
and
again
two
because to
for.
me it looked like Perez was cracking him way more than he was getting caught. But
He
again,
also ate a ton of leg kicks. That was a big part of it too. Morales was kicking his leg to pieces in the first 2 rounds.
yeah, yeah,
So,
that is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. Anyway, back to the main event. Michael Johnson obliterates Dustin Poirier, minute 35 seconds to the first round. All Johnson. I mean, Poirier was
yeah,
just barely starting to look like he was finding his range and his timing, and got lit the fuck up.
yeah. I mean, it's an absolute momentum killer for Dustin Poirier, and it's a start of what I hope to be a seeing Michael Johnson make a run back up, look like a contender again. But as discussed, it's hard to. I don't have
It's
a lot of faith in Michael Johnson contender as a guy who's 17-10. Maybe this is his time. maybe he's really found his range, or maybe he's just going to always be kind of a matchup dependent dude who totally beats some people easily, and next time out he'll get picked off by, I don't know, RDA, and we'll just be like, well,
Yeah, I would definitely pick RDA over Johnson. But to me, if Johnson wins a couple more fights against ranked name opponents in this kind of fashion, I mean, it's a whole new ballgame for his career, and certainly somebody I would be much more interested in seeing fight than the Michael Johnson we've known in the past. And same for Derek Brunson, except Brunson has a real head of steam built up. He's got a serious win streak in the UFC, and he's moving on up the ladder. And Uriah Hall, to me, by far is the biggest name that he's notched on his belt. And so I'm excited to see Derek Brunson going forward. I think much more so than Michael Johnson. But any final thoughts on the card?
yeah, I mean, it was a weird card. It was not always a great card. It had a couple of bad fights,
Yeah,
but honestly, it wasn't terrible. Like, it wasn't a card. The by far the one, like, honest to God, just terrible fight was Ron Carnero versus Kenny, or Han Carnero versus Kenny Robertson.
yeah. But we knew that
Otherwise,
was going to set going in. I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
and otherwise, I mean, Brunson Hall was fast and fun. Evan Dunham versus Glenn was a ton of fun. Makachev versus Wade was pretty fun. Skelly versus Blanco was obviously super fun. Benitez versus Cecilia was pretty fun. Muhammad versus Montana wasn't bad.
No, it had a happy ending, so
Yeah.
I'll take it. And I thought same with Carlos Jr. And what they call him again?
Leonardo Leleco.
Leleco. Okay.
And Quinonez versus Gomez was fun. And Brown versus Montano was fun. And Morales versus Perez was like, none of these fights were terrible. They just weren't super high level either.
No, there was definitely a feeling of minor league action tonight. So that's our show. Follow us on Twitter at KidNate, at Zane Simon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, MMANation.com. Subscribe to our iTunes channel and get the audio without the ugly, MMA Nation. Follow us on BloodyElbow.com. Eugene will be back tomorrow with Knuckle Up. And then we're going into Cyborg versus Landsberg next weekend, and we'll have all the fixins with the Care Don't Care previews and the vivisections and all that. So thanks, St. Simon, and adios, MMA aficionados. This is Kid Nate. We'll see you next time.